Well, all right. Welcome again to our next lesson here. This will be lesson 7 in our series on spiritual realm realities. And we're starting to get into some interesting issues here with Israel and that engagement that they're going to have with the gods of the different lands there as they enter Canaan. And last slide that we had dealt with in lesson 6, I've got that up on the board right now. Deuteronomy 2, verse 20 to 22 reads thusly, that also was accounted land of giants. Giants dwelt therein in old time, and the Ammonites called them Zamzammims, a people great and many and tall as the Anakims, but the Lord destroyed them before them, and they succeeded them and dwelt in their stead. So he had given this land after destroying these giants to the other people, the descendants of Esau and so forth, as we studied. And he did it to the children of Esau, which dwelt in Seir, when he destroyed the Horims from before them, and they succeeded them, and dwelt in their stead even to this day. And the Avims, which dwelt in Hazarim, even unto Azah, the Caphtorims, which came forth out of Caphtor, destroyed them, and dwelt in their stead. Okay, so now we're going to proceed on to this next issue about the conquest of Heshbon. So still in Deuteronomy chapter 2, we see in verse 24, rise up, take your journey, speaking to the children of Israel, and pass over the river Arnon. Behold, I have given into thine hand Sihon the Amorite, king of Heshbon, and his land. Begin to possess it, and contend with him in battle. So he's going to send the Israelites forth under Joshua's command there to take this area of Heshbon, which is under the rulership of the king Sihon, okay, this Amorite king. And as we look at, continue to look at verse 30, it says, but Sihon, king of Heshbon, would not let us pass by him, for the Lord thy God hardened his spirit and made his heart obstinate. Why? That he might deliver him into thy hand, as appeareth this day. Now again, if you recall the tactic, if you will, from God's perspective, when we spoke and studied about the issues of the plagues of Egypt, why all 10 had to be basically played out by God through there, even at times when the Pharaoh would relent and want to let the people children go. At times God would harden Pharaoh's heart for the express purpose that we learned, so that Israel and Egypt would know that the Most High God was the one that ruled in the affairs of men, that these other lesser gods, these lesser Elohim, were no match for Jehovah God, the Most High God. And so you see that taking place here. God has a purpose here. He's going to give this land that is now under control of Sihon, king of Heshbon. And in order to do that, he will have to harden Sihon's spirit there so that he might deliver that land to Israel. Okay, so just be aware of that. And it says, I've got my note there, the Lord hardens King Sihon's heart. Look at Joshua 11:20. Joshua chapter 11 and verse 20. Let's go over there. Joshua chapter 11. And I've got verse 20 down there for this portion. For it was the Lord to harden their hearts. Why? That they should come against Israel in battle. Why? That he might destroy them utterly, and that they might have no favor, but he might destroy them as the Lord commanded Moses. Okay, so the issue here with Moses is in the land. They're destroying these people. When Joshua takes over control as captain of the Lord's host, he will be the one who will lead Israel in battle against the gods of the Canaanites in the land they're to go to. So another interesting note here, I said, why target him? Genesis 15, go back there with me, Genesis 15, and let's look at verse 13 to 16, because this issue of the Amorites is a key thing here, which is I don't think it's really totally understood by people who have researched this, but this might make some sense as to why it says what it does about the iniquity of the Amorites not being yet full, and that's found in Genesis chapter 15, beginning with verse 13. Genesis 15 and 13. He said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. Of course, that we know that's going to be the issue of their bondage and captivity and so forth under the Egyptians. And God is basically letting Abraham know here that that's what's going to take place in the future, and that Abraham is going to die, never having seen the fulfillment of the promise in his lifetime about that kingdom and the land and so forth is going to be his. He will, we learn in the book of Hebrews, chapter 11 there, that he looked for a city whose builder and maker was God. And so that promise is going to be fulfilled for Abraham, and of course he'll have to be resurrected to enjoy that. So even in that promise you see here, and God sharing with him what's going to happen in the future, that he's going to pass on, his progeny will be captives for 400 years. He lets him know that there is a promise that God is going to be faithful to. The future out there, that kingdom will be his. That city that's been prepared will be his. And so we read on here in verse 14, he said, Also that nation whom they shall serve, Egypt, will I judge, and afterwards shall they come out with great substance, which they surely did. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace, thou shalt be buried in a good old age. So he lets him know, you're going to pass away, and this is what's going to happen next. But in the fourth generation, they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. Interesting phrase there. The iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. But apparently now, as we come to this time in history there, when God is bringing Israel into the land there and beginning to conquer these different places that is to be theirs by God's promise, now is the time when God is ready to judge the Amorites. And he's going to begin here with the Sihon, the king of the Amorites, in this place called Heshbon. Let me give you two other cross references here. Go back to Genesis chapter 9. Genesis 9. And we'll look at verse 22 I've got there. Genesis chapter 9. Genesis 9. And look at verse 22. 21. This is about Noah when he gets off the ark. He drank of the wine and was drunken. He was uncovered within his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren without. Now, what is interesting there, when we think about this curse that's going to come, I always kind of insinuated and heard everybody talk about the curse went on Ham. You got Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the sons of Noah there. And that Ham is not the one that's going to be cursed. It's Canaan who's going to be cursed, and we'll see that. And let's read that verse again. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders and went backwards and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. This issue of this nakedness. Look at verse 25. He says, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. Now go to chapter 10, verse 15 and 16. Chapter 10 and verse 15 and 16. And Canaan begot Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, and the Jebusite, and the Amorite, and the Girgashite. So he gives birth, the descendancy of Canaan expressed here comes down these issues of these tribes here, which many of them say they'll be the Canaanites who will be in the land when Israel shows up there, the land that God has promised to them. Look at verse 18. And the Arvadite, the Zemarite, the Hamathite, and after were the families of the Canaanites spread abroad. And he's placed this curse upon Canaan, the son of Ham, who had had this transgression against his father's nakedness. Now, I don't have time to go into all the issue with that. You can study that yourself. But if you check that out, that issue of his father's nakedness is not about Noah's nakedness. It's about his wife, His wife had been violated there, and he had saw that. So he had seen the nakedness of his mother, which was a transgression there. And so that's what's going on back there. And again, you can study that issue out yourself in a separate lesson. But now what I wanted to point out to you, the issue with Canaan and the tribes and so forth descended from him, one of these tribes is the Amorites, okay? And when he says the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full back here in Genesis, well, there comes a time apparently we can see here that the iniquity of the Amorites is full. God has determined that now is the time to deal with them. And so that issue is coming into play here as Israel is led into the land there, and God makes positive sure by hardening, making obstinate the heart of Sihon the king in order to have the purpose fulfilled there. He's going to take him out of the land with his people. He's going to destroy them, okay? Go with me to that cross-reference there in Amos chapter 2. Amos chapter 2. We got that over here. Amos chapter 2. One of the minor prophets there. It's after Joel, I believe. Yeah, here's Amos chapter 2. And we're reminded of this issue again about the Amorites and how God would destroy them. Amos gives reference to this in chapter 2. And if you look at verse 9, he's pronouncing judgment here against Israel and so forth because of their obstinacy and rebellion and apostasy. But in verse 9 he says, "Yet destroyed I the Amorite before them, whose height was like the height of the cedars, and he was strong as the oaks. Yet I destroyed his fruit from above, and his roots from beneath." And otherwise he's going to wipe out that population. "And I brought you up from the land of Egypt and led you 40 years through the wilderness to possess the land of the Amorite." Okay? And so there's that reference again, even over in Amos, where these Amorites, we can see and understand they're associated with the giant clans. And again, what's going on here, as in our previous study and even here now, the giants had been taken care of in some areas under Moses, and now they're going to continue in that to face these giants, and they have to be gotten rid of out of the clan, out of the land there. The gods of Canaan had raised up bloodlines that were opposed to God's plan for Israel. It harkens back into even Genesis 6, if you recall that study, where that incursion of the sons of God with the daughters of men had taken place, and there were giants born to them. And if you recall that verse over there, I think it's verse 6, there were giants in the land, and after that, you saw, well, this is the after that, as far as I'm concerned. And so this same ploy, if you will, this same strategy by Satan to destroy the seed line of the woman, now having to turn his focus through Israel, because that's where the seed line is going to be working through. There are these gods of the Canaanites who had raised up bloodlines once again that were opposed to God's plan for Israel. It's part of the spiritual warfare that's going on in Satan's attack upon Israel to destroy them when they do come into the land, because you understand that even Satan himself was aware, no doubt, of the prophecy that was given to Abraham we just talked about. You're going to die, your progeny is going to be 400 years in captivity, but you're going to come back into the land. And so, and the Amorite, the iniquity of the Amorites is going to be full at that time. He promises to go in there and to take care of that issue, okay? Now, knowing that and understanding that, hopefully, go to Deuteronomy chapter 2 again. Deuteronomy chapter 2. Deuteronomy 2. Deuteronomy 2, and let's look at verse 32 and 34. See if I can get over there. Deuteronomy chapter 2. And beginning with, let's just begin with verse 30 again. "But Sihon, king of Heshbon, would not let us pass by him, for the Lord thy God hardened his spirit and made his heart obstinate. Why? That he might deliver him into the hand, as appeareth this day. And the Lord said unto me, Behold, I have begun to give Sihon and his land before thee. Begin to possess, that thou mayest inherit his land. Then Sihon came out against us, he and all his people, to fight at Jahaz. And the Lord our God delivered him before us, and we smote him and his sons and all his people. And we took all his cities at that time, and utterly destroyed the men, and the women, and the little ones of every city. We left none to remain." So again, I don't know if I've raised this issue in previous lessons or not, but many times I've been asked this question, even and considered this question myself years ago when I would study this issue back here, where God is wiping out in some cases, men, women, children, animals, everything, decimating, just like it says here, utterly destroying different tribes and so forth in this land where he's going to give to Israel. And you wonder, why in the world would he do that? Well, again, this is an opposing bloodline now, and it harkens back and is associated with the giant clans, and we have to be aware of that. That's what I see in my study of Scripture about what's going on there in this warfare that is waging now between big G God, the Lord, Jehovah, and the gods, the small G, this is the lesser Elohim, who have become rivals of God in the land, having received worship by the people to themselves, and I will no doubt continue to give more detail on that as we progress through our study. But there's a war going on. The Lord versus the gods of the disinherited nations who are opposed to God's plan for his nation of Israel. Okay? I hope that makes sense. All right, so there's Heshbon. And now we're going to go to the conquest of Bashan. Now, when we get into the issue of Bashan, I want you to really keep in memory anything we talk about or hear about Bashan, Mount Hermon, those locations up there in the northern regions of the promised land up there that God was going to give into their hand. This issue of Bashan is going to crop up in many instances in our study through the issue of the spiritual warfare going on. And so even in the times of Christ, you're going to see this issue of Bashan. And so just keep that in memory as we go through these things. Well, anyway, Deuteronomy chapter 3, and let's look at verse 1, and let's read about this. Here's the next stage in the conquest that God is leading Israel through. Then we turned, Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 1, then we turned and went up the way to Bashan, and Og, the king of Bashan, came out against us, and he and all his people to battle at Edrei. And the Lord said unto me, Fear him not, for I will deliver him and all his people and his land into thy hand. And thou shalt do unto him as thou didst unto Sihon, king of the Amorites, which dwelt at Heshbon. What did he do to Sihon, king of the Amorites? Well, he wiped him out. Okay? So the Lord our God delivered unto our hands Og, also the king of Bashan, and all his people, and we smote him until none was left to him remaining. So they destroy again this giant clan and their king. And we took all his cities at that time. There was not a city which we took, not from them, 80 cities, all the region of Argob, the kingdom of Og in Bashan. All these cities were fenced with high walls, gates, and bars, beside unwalled towns, great many. And we utterly destroyed them. There's that issue again, the utter destruction. As we did unto Sihon, king of Heshbon, utterly destroying the men, women, and children and of every city. So you can imagine the slaughter. As I'm recording this lesson here, we're about 2 weeks or so, or 2 or 3 weeks into the issue where Hamas had attacked Israel, and now Israel is going in and trying to utterly destroy the Hamas terrorists over there. And you talk about men, women, and children suffering under that type of warfare. And so here we see this again. Verse 7 now, he makes an exception. All the cattle and the spoil of the cities we took for a prey to ourselves. And we took at that time out of the hand of the 2 kings of the Amorites, Og and Sihon, the land that was on this side Jordan from the river Arnon to Mount Hermon. Now there's that Mount Hermon reference now. Again, that's up north there, and we'll encounter this again. Mount Hermon becomes a critical issue here. Mount Hermon is believed by many, and I don't have scripture for this, but it's believed by many scholars who have looked into this issue of what was going on, that that could have been the place where the sons of God descended and then cohabited with the daughters of men. So there's a sinister relationship going on here, or sinister nature rather, with this area of Bashan and Mount Hermon. It's a place up there, obviously, where the Canaanites were worshiping their gods. Baal worship is a central system of worship up in that region of Bashan. So just keep that in your mind. Verse 9, which Hermon the Sidonians call Sirion, and the Amorites call it Shinir, and all the cities of the plain, and all Gilead, and Bashan, and Salcah, and Edrei, cities of the kingdom of Og and Bashan. For only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of the giants, the Rephaim. Behold, his bedstead was a bedstead of iron. Is it not in Rabath of the children of Ammon? 9 cubits was the length thereof, 4 cubits the breadth of, after the cubit of a man. So Og is the last remaining remnant in this area of the giant clans. And so now they've taken care of that area and gotten rid of those. So I got a couple of cross references there for you: Genesis 12:6 and Genesis 14:5. Let's look at those real quick so I don't miss anything. Genesis chapter 12, verse 6. Genesis 12:6. And Abram passed through the land into the place of Sichem, unto the plain of Moreh, and the Canaanite was then in the land. So even during Abraham's time, the Canaanite civilizations were already beginning to populate that area. Chapter 14, verse 5. And in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him, and smote the Rephaims in Ashtaroth, Karnaim, and the Zumims in Ham, and the Amims of Shavah Kiriathaim. Now remember, the Amims, the Zumims, the Rephaims, any of those things, those are giant clans that are involved in the land. And back there, even Abraham was contending with these and the kings that he joined with. And so if you recall that issue back there where he had taken to recover Lot and so forth, and returned and dealt with Melchizedek and so forth, that's what's going on. That's who they're battling back there. The Canaanite civilization had these giant clan bloodlines throughout that region. And again, the sinister purpose behind all that is, of course, Satan's attempt to destroy once again the bloodline of Israel when they eventually come into the land. By the way, that's again why there's always that warning of not to intermarry with the other Canaanite civilizations, the great portion being that they would go off and begin to worship their gods. And we know the story already. That's exactly what happens to the children of Israel. They go whoring after other gods, even after being warned time and time again not to do that. And we'll see that as we continue our study. But let me see if I've got anything for you on this particular one, and we'll probably close out this lesson with this slide. But go to Joshua chapter 12, Joshua 12. And I guess I think I had read this years before, but never paid much attention to it. Joshua 12, verses 4. And the coast of Og, king of Bashan, which was of the remnant of the giants, that dwelt in Ashtaroth and Edrei. And remember, I didn't say this before, there are still giants in the land. And you obviously will be aware of that. David and his mighty men will end up having to contend with some giants later on over there amongst the Philistines, So there's still, but they have taken care of the giant issue up there in the northern part, And so the coast of king of Og, king of Bashan, which was the remnant of the giants, dwelt at Ashtaroth and Edrei, and reigned in Mount Hermon, and in Salcah, and in all Bashan, unto the border of the Geshurites and the Maacathites, and half Gilead, and the border of Sihon, king of Heshbon. Heshbon and Bashan bordered each other, and Sihon of the Amorites, and Og of Bashan. And they reigned in Mount Hermon. Verse 6, Then did Moses, the servant of the Lord, and the children of Israel smite, and Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave it for a possession unto the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh, So that's where they inherit that, because they've basically driven those people out, and now they're taking possession just as the Lord commanded. And so when you get up to the remainder of that chapter there, see if I can find a proper place to show you this, when says the kings, verse 7, of the country which Joshua and the children of Israel smote on this side Jordan, from Baal Gad and the valley of Lebanon, so on and so forth. If you read down there, there's a list. Verse 9, the king of Jericho. Verse 10, king of Jerusalem. Verse 11, king of Jarmuth, king of Lachish. And I counted them up. he basically goes in there and destroys and drives out 31 kings and their people. See, and Joshua, that's what he gets the job done when he's in there as the leader now after Moses has passed on. Joshua becomes the one who is going to lead Israel into battle and into this warfare that's going on between God and the gods of the Canaanites, okay? And so that was quite interesting to me. Of course, we understand too, and we know because we've read the book, that after Joshua dies, instead of continuing on and continuing to cleanse the land of the giants and so forth and the evil that's in that land, the devils that are there, they fail to do that, and that's going to cost them dearly. And because of their disobedience and following God's command to continue to drive out those other little god nations out of the land, they're going to enter into relation with them and so forth. They're going to rebel. They're going to go after the other gods of the Canaanite civilization, and that's going to lead to their eventual downfall. But anyway, let me see if I've got anything else in these notes that we need to cover before we close this session out. The region of Bashan, again, was known in ancient times as the place of the serpent, interestingly enough, isn't it? The place of the serpent. Mount Hermon also has sinister significance, I wrote here. It's where Baal is said to reside and was worshipped. It is thought by some, as I said before, to be the place where the sons of God descend, as referenced in Genesis 6. Now, again, that's something that's speculative, but it could be very significant, and you're going to find out that might not be too far off the mark when we get over to the Gospels, when Jesus Christ goes up to the area around Bashan, up by Caesarea Philippi, and where Mount Hermon is located. And so that's a little heads up for when we eventually get there. So my last note here says we will discover deeper significance later on regarding Bashan and Mount Hermon when we get to Jesus' earthly ministry and the Apostle Paul's connection to them, okay? All right, so I think that's enough for this particular lesson. I don't want to make them each one too long. And then let me just give you a sneak peek of the next slide here. And here's Canaan land, the new generation under Joshua and Holy War. And I've got, if you can see this, I think this arrow is working here. There's Bashan up north, okay? And I don't recall if we dealt with this in previous lesson. Here's the area over where the Philistines will be, see, and there's some giants left there. And then you've got the place where the Edomites dwelt, the Moabites and the Ammonites, if you recall where those come from the daughters of incestuous relationship with Lot. And God says, don't bother these people. And he sends them farther on up here to Bashan first with Og and Sihon in that area, in Heshbon. And then next time we're going to see that under Joshua's command, remember those 31 kings and so forth that I just spoke of? Here's the area here where they begin to take care of the issue there of driving those other nations out, those other tribes and so forth, okay? So anyway, that's where we'll end this lesson, and we'll pick up again next time with this devoted to destruction context. All right? So God bless, and that's lesson 7, and we will pick up next time on lesson number 8. Take care.